Hi everyone, it's Diane. Here we are on our So Here's What I've Been Thinking About series. And today our topic is priorities, procrastination, perfection, and habit. Really excited to spend some time today talking about these very real leadership issues and topics that I think impact leaders at all stages of their leadership journey. So, what we hope to do today is to take a look at how we can most effectively use time to achieve our goals and to get out of the busy cycle. We'll talk a little bit about the relationship between perfection and productivity and procrastination. And then we'll talk a little bit about understanding the role of habits and discipline. So, first of all, just to start out thinking about time, there are all sorts of time management tools and methods and all sorts of that stuff out there. And I would encourage you to figure out what kind of a system to track the activities that you're doing on a daily basis is and what will work for you. Our conversation today is a little bit different. I think that the first thing that we need to understand is time is finite. Doesn't matter who you are, what station of life you're at, how old you are, how experienced you are, we all still have the same amount of hours in a day. And so there's no way to grow the amount of time you have. What there is, however, is a great opportunity to control the use of your time. And the way I like to think about it is to decide what it is that you're going to pay attention to. Time is an investment, and sometimes we don't think about it in that way. Sometimes we think about investments being resources in terms of dollars or equipment, people. But when you actually think about making a conscious decision about where it is that you're going to invest your time, that actually is a bit of a game changer. And so where is it that you're putting your attention, and how is it that you're making sure that you're getting the biggest return on investment in how you're spending your time? We have a culture of busyness that we've talked about for some time, and it's not just within our organization, it's across the board. And there is some sort of a weird equation that if you're busy, you must be important, or if you're busy, you're fine. And despite the pandemic, one of the things that intrigues me is that I think that this has just continued to perpetuate that a global pandemic wasn't even enough to stop this idea about how we equate busy with important. But you may be busy, but what are you accomplishing? And I think oftentimes we confuse activity with accomplishment, and no one gets anywhere by doing the wrong things well. And so, what I challenge you to do today is to think about how it is that you're investing your time, and are you spending it on those things that will actually get you the furthest ahead in terms of accomplishing your goals. Nobody is too busy, straight up. It's just a matter of priorities. And so, how it is that you figure out your time and figure out your priorities becomes the controllable aspect of that. Do you have a to-do list? Pretty well everybody does. How long's your list? What's on your list? How do you decide what to pay attention to? When we think about the work on the important, urgent matrix that we've done in the past, I would challenge you to take a look at your to-do list and to figure out, when you think about what you're spending your time on today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, do those things fit into the important work, into the priority work that actually help you to get to where you want to get to, whether it's in the strategic priorities or a specific goal that you have. John Maxwell, who is a leadership guru who's written all sorts of great books, talks about the key to leadership being priorities, and poses, I think, three really insightful questions. The first one is, when I think about my priorities, what's required of me? What is it that I need to do that no one else but me can do? The second question he asks is, what gives me the greatest return? Am I really doing what I do best? and getting the best return for the organization? Is the work that I'm doing aligned with the strengths that I bring to the organization? And what's most rewarding? Because really, if this isn't rewarding, then we either need to do one of two things. We need to figure out how to bring our work back to a place where it is rewarding and where the return on investment is not only to achieve the strategic priorities of the organization, but it also honors and recognizes what it is that you feel is rewarding about your work. If it still isn't rewarding, then frankly, I would challenge you to figure out why it is that you're doing the work, because that's the whole purpose of the exercise. Work being rewarding and leadership being rewarding is a really important aspect. We're going to talk a little bit about procrastination and about, actually before I do that, I want to go back for a minute because I think that that's another thing. In leadership, when we think about our work and we think about thinking, one of the things that I would say is that leaders are actually in a leadership position so that they can think. Think about strategy. Think about how to do things differently. Think about how to do things better. Think about building on what we've already got going. Think about innovation. Think about all of the things that actually move something forward. And so oftentimes in a leadership role, if we are busy with activities and not necessarily working on the right things, then we don't have that time to think. So I would challenge you to figure out how to put some thinking time into your day, into your week, into your month. And that again can look different for everybody. What we have to consistently remember is that everybody's on their own leadership journey. And my journey does not look like your journey. And your journey does not look like your colleague's journey. And that's actually the magic of all of this, is that we each are here to try to be a better leader tomorrow than we were today. My good friend, he's not a friend really, but my good person, Simon Sinek, who's written all sorts of fantastic leadership books, had a great quote recently. And his quote was that the bad news is that we are our own worst enemies. The good news, however, is that we are our own best hope. And I can't think of a better way to think about that when we're talking about a leadership journey. So back to priorities, and let's talk a little bit about procrastination and delay management. So procrastination really is avoidance. We're avoiding doing something because we don't want to, because we don't think we can do it. You don't do anything. You get into this vicious cycle. Then you feel guilty that you haven't done anything. Then you doubt yourself and your ability to do it. Then you feel helpless, so you don't do anything. It's just one of those cycles that keeps going round and round and round. Delay management and delaying things is different. Kind of goes with the slow down to speed up, because sometimes we need to think about something first before we actually act on it. And one of the things I would suggest is that if we take time to think about something, if we get our ducks in a row, if we let it sort of percolate in our heads for a bit, then we're ready to start. That's different than avoiding something. Now, there is a fine line between delaying something and actually procrastinating, and only you will know that difference. Sometimes, though, a pause and patience is good because it allows you to think something through and to come up with a better strategy, who it is you need to consult with, what it is you need to be considering in the task you're about to do. That's delay management. Procrastination is when you know you have to do something. You have to write a report, you have to write a grant application, you have to phone a parent, you have to have a difficult conversation with a staff person, whatever it might be, and you're doing whatever you possibly can to avoid that. You're busy, no question. You're busy doing all sorts of activities. But actually what ends up happening is your anxiety rises because really what's on your mind is that difficult thing you have to do that you're procrastinating about. So again, the notion is delay management versus procrastination. Avoidance, procrastination, delay management, thinking it through, slowing down, making sure that you've got a good strategy before you move ahead. Let's now move to perfection. Perfection is a difficult thing. Perfection versus good enough. So one of the things that we know, and often people in a leadership role exhibit this, is a quest for perfection. And sometimes it gets in the way of our productivity because we don't want to mess up. We don't want to be anything less than perfect. And I would beg you, well, beg's a strong word, I would ask you to replace perfection with progress. Because progress is something that we try to do every day. Perfection is unattainable. You may be perfect for a moment, but you want to believe that the next moment it's not going to be so perfect. So let's let go of that. Brené Brown does an excellent job of talking about the gifts of imperfection. We're all imperfect people. And the more we accept that and acknowledge that and look for progress, not perfection, the better able we are to lead those around us. Rosabeth Cantor talks about 4 reasons that any action is better than none. And I would encourage you to look at her work, because what she talks about is the importance of small wins and the importance of accomplishments coming in pieces, and that actions produce energy and momentum. And if we're stalled on something, if we're procrastinating against something, sometimes the hardest thing to do is to start. And I would encourage you to take a look at what it is that's getting in your way of starting something. Act. What's the worst thing that can happen? If you just start, if you figure it out and you just start, that might be incredibly helpful to you. The last thing I want to talk about this morning is the power of habit and discipline. And in a leadership role, when we have plenty of demands on our time, it's so important to develop some habits and some discipline around how it is that you invest your time, what it is you pay attention to. And there is not a magic formula that will work for everyone. The habits that I have are not the habits that you will want or you will have, because we're all individuals in this. And what's most important is that we actually find those habits that work for us, and that we challenge our excuses and get rid of any wiggle room. Because honestly, sometimes what happens is we can rationalize things to death. And the more we can challenge ourselves about coming up with excuses for not starting something, for not doing something, for not accomplishing something, the better able we are to accomplish what it is that we need to accomplish. And staying focused on the results. Again, sometimes when we concentrate on the difficulty of the task and we get daunted or overwhelmed by that, what we forget is that we actually can just get started on the task and work our way through it. And that will give us not the perfect solution, but it will give us an accomplishment that makes progress towards strategic priorities, towards the kinds of goals that you have that really aren't going to happen unless you exhibit that discipline that is necessary to do that. So again, just some things for you to think about. Everybody's on their own journey. Find something that works for you. Challenge your assumptions around activity versus accomplishment. Understand about the difference between delaying something and procrastination. Develop some good habits. Do some research, use Google and understand a little bit more about the kinds of time management things there are there for you. And I wish you well in trying to figure out how it is that you're going to invest your time. Thanks again for coming today. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next time.